Hello and welcome to Psychedelic Spotlight's Body Workshop, our inaugural live stream for this offering, which will be every other Tuesday here on YouTube. My name is Greg in good company. It is a great pleasure to be here to hang out, host this, talk to some wonderful people every week. Top left-hand corner, we have our incredible producer and Psychedelic Spotlight creative director, Matthew Donahue. How are you, brother?
Good. Thanks. Thank you for being here, everybody. So glad to put this little group together. And yeah, like Greg said, it's kind of the maiden voyage of the Body Workshop tonight as part of our Spotlight Exchange live stream program. Obviously, the intention is to get people involved, to be a forum for people to be able to chat in and share what's on their mind on the topics that we're discussing. We figured that a live stream dedicated to mushrooms would be an interesting and sustainable operation. And then one dedicated to embodiment and integration practices would be another one that people could get real benefit from. So, we're baby stepping our way to greatness.
Hey, we're just going to try to be the greatest we can every baby step of the way too.
Yeah.
And with that being said, we have some great guests today. Joining us, we have Maria Lopez, who is, you see, the founder and CEO of Ascending Arts. She is an energy medicine practitioner. And right below her is Andrea Monnier, who is a meditation teacher. And very grateful to have you both on the stream today. And I'm excited because I'm into both these things. I'm familiar with meditation. I'm a student of Zen, and but I'm not too familiar with energy medicine, and I've always wanted to go to an energy healer. So, Maria, it's fate we met. But with that being said, I just want to kick it off to Maria, and then we'll go to Andrea next. Just tell us about yourself, about your practice, and let's get into it.
Yeah, sure. Well, hi. As Greg said, I am Maria Lopez. I am the founder and creator of Ascending Arts, which is I call it my life practice, not my business, because my whole life has been leading up to this practice and this ministry. And I am a certified Reiki master and trauma-informed life coach. And I really niched to kind of specifically help trauma survivors who have trauma stored in their bodies, in their autonomic nervous system, to release that trauma utilizing Reiki and trauma-informed life coaching. And also, apparently, my cat is really hungry. So if you hear her meowing in the background,
I've been hearing her.
She just really wants to be on the show today. So
Well, feel free to put her in frame anytime. The more guests, the merrier. It sounds like she's got something to say. And Andrea, do you want to give yourself the same introduction as well?
Sure. Thanks for having me, guys. It's nice to be here. So I am a meditation teacher and a spiritual counselor. I came across meditation probably about 10 years ago, and it was very instrumental on my spiritual journey. Also, I found other modalities that I also kind of integrated with meditation. And then I got special training last year, became a meditation teacher, and now I am teaching live, and I also do one-on-ones as well.
Very cool. Can you tell us how meditation? I'm gonna kick this back to Maria as well. Same kind of question, but how has your practice of meditation changed your life? Because before you can impact others, you must feel it yourself. So, can you take us through? You said you started this, or kind of was introduced in meditation 10 years ago, discovered it, been practicing. How have you noticed it improve your life on day to day?
Well, I think like anything, we go through life and we're externally focused on these accomplishments and career and relationships and all of these things. And we get to a point when we start to kind of have questions like, is this all there is? And so mine kind of came about in that kind of arena where I was just, really kind of questioning, why am I here? Kind of like the deeper, existential questions. And I also was just kind of experiencing a lot of like anxiety, just like living as a human. And I was into yoga, and yoga was wonderful. But I started to kind of look into the practice of yoga, and then also just like the science of yoga and meditation. And I learned a ton about kind of the Hindu roots and I'm really fascinated with it. Anyways, yeah, and then meditation became part of my daily practice. I just felt like it really helped connect me with my higher self, for lack of a better term, my intuition. I also was able to kind of heal parts of myself as well. I got to a place where I was able to kind of get to this, I think we all had this core of like equanimity in us. And I was able to kind of tap into that part of myself. And once you kind of feel that, and I think a lot of us, the audience have experienced psychedelics. So it's a similar kind of experience when you experience that kind of egoless state and you're like, wow, I want more of that. And that's sort of what meditation also provides. So for me, it's just been like a daily practice. It's just how I connect with myself. Yeah.
I don't know if Andrea, you're a fan, or have you read any of Ram Dass's work?
Oh yeah.
Psychedelics and Spirituality, and
Oh yeah.
Be Here Now is like my favorite book ever created. But there's a little antidote, I think, in the front chapters before you get to all the pictures and the good stuff, where he's in India and he's giving out LSD to he wants to meet like the spiritual guru, and he gives it to a guy, and one of many, and he says, it's pretty good, but meditation's better.
Yeah, I think psychedelics are a great gateway.
Yeah.
And they can be a catalyst for many of us to experience that divinity within ourselves. But a lot of times it's peak experiences, right? We have these peak experiences, we come back to the 3D reality and it's like, okay, now what? And so I feel that meditation can kind of help us integrate those experiences and also be able to have that taste on a daily basis as well.
Yeah, and I watched a documentary recently. I wrote about it for Psychedelic Spotlight, called Descending the Mountain. And if you Google monks on mushrooms, the article will probably pop up. But it was a scientific double-blind study where they went to a monastery in like Switzerland, I think, maybe Sweden. And the Zen priest kind of facilitated it. And some of the practitioners got the mushrooms and some didn't. And that was just one of the more kind of fascinating studies, and they caught it all on camera. It's a very good documentary if you're into both spirituality and psychedelics, really merges them. But I watched a speech with that same Zen master kind of when he was out talking about the film, and he said it's a crazy statistic, like 70% of like Zen practitioners get there via psychedelics. Like they have a psychedelic experience, and then that is the gateway, as you described it, Andrea, that leads them into the daily practice of Zen, which is kind of just another word for meditation. And so there's definitely that connection, and I've experienced the same thing. And so I guess I'll kick it back to Maria to kind of give your take, how your practice has changed your life. And I don't know, it seems like some things we're talking about are already resonating with you. You're touching your heart and you're feeling it. So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm a very effusive listener, so that's how you know I'm actively listening. You'll know I'm dissociating when I don't do anything. So unlike Andrea, or kind of like Andrea, for me, my gateway was meditation. That was my gateway into the spiritual world as well. And then, but unlike what Andrea said about most people where they have like these peak experiences and that leads them into meditation, for me, it was just like her. It was meditation that led me into the rest of my spiritual journey, including having those peak experiences with psychedelics. But for me, I think being a practitioner, being a healer, doing Reiki, that absolutely has impacted who I am as a person. I was just telling a friend and client who I was having breakfast with this morning that being a coach and having to live by example is one of the reasons why I have healed so much of myself. Practicing Reiki, becoming a healer, guiding other people to their healing, and having to really walk the walk instead of just talking the talk is the thing that has put me in a position of going, guess I better get my shit together. Right? Okay, say that on here.
Yeah, this is the
okay,
internet. Say whatever.
Potty mouth, so awesome. I'm all love and light, but I really love the F word. So so I think that's one of the things that when you said, Greg, earlier, that in order to heal others, you really have to heal yourself. In order to really hold that space for others, you have to be able to hold space for yourself. I think it's really true. And just to name a few things that I have been forced to face and heal because I was a healer and because I knew I had to hold other people's energy in my hands. Um, my eating disorder, I had to heal. My homicidal rage towards my abusive dead grandfather, I had to heal that. All of my fears of starting a family, I had to heal that. My anxious attachment wounds, had to heal that. My trauma from having an abusive ex-husband, had to heal all of that in order to be able to be the kind of guide and leader that I am now, and able to hold that space in a way that's really energetically squeaky clean. Right.
Yeah, because I mean, it's the craziest thing is once you start really getting involved in these practices, you really, I mean, I think we've always had an inkling that people feel your thoughts. You know, people pick up your vibes, as we like to say these days, and it's like, you know, your facial expressing can give away the deeper thought that's on your mind. But you become really, really tuned into those frequencies, however you want to describe it, where you're like that kind of, you're picking up that subconscious. And so once you start to pick that up, you go, oh, well, then people are picking it up from me. So I really, like you're saying, work on yourself so that you're giving off good energy and you're not just putting up a front like I'm happy and cool, but inside I'm angry and agonized and dying, you know, whatever. So that seems to be like just something that naturally happens as a result of any of these practices, meditation. Is it Reiki?
Reiki.
Reiki. Reiki.
So it's Reiki. So the emphasis goes on the second syllable. I know most people think it's Reiki, but it's actually Reiki.
Reiki. Okay, cool. I learned something today. Thank you. I've always been wondering, how do I pronounce this? I'm going to learn on the air in front of everyone who watches.
Yeah, well, that everybody else gets to learn too, so that's great. One thing that you said that just came through for me is when you said that we have to sometimes be, we think we're going to put up a front, right? And just be like, oh, I'm not great, but I'm going to pretend to be okay, and people can feel the difference. For me, one of the things that I've had to really find in my my leadership life, as we'll call it, my life as a leader, is that authenticity is key. It's okay to not be okay. That's okay. But be honest about it, right? I can't tell you how many times in the last year I've had to take mental health days and I've had to reschedule clients and say, hey, I am in no position to be in your energy today. I'm so sorry. Can we reschedule for tomorrow or something? You know, you have to be honest with people and you have to own your stuff. But when you're able to own your stuff, then you give them permission to own theirs too. And you tell them that it's okay to face your shadows. I'm facing mine and I'm doing it with self-compassion and radical authenticity and ownership of my shadow. You can too.
Maria, I like to hear you say that. That's how I've always felt about playing music also. You know, I think the one thing about music and being in the place to play music and write music is that it's okay, on a very basic level, it's okay to share how you're feeling. You know, and when you see people who get up there and they have made the decision to share how they're feeling, and to say, you know what, you might not like it, but I've decided that whatever my imagination has created is worth sharing. I think that's nice for people to see. I think that's part of why people enjoy seeing live music. And you're a musician also. In fact, your background is, you're deeply a musician. We want to talk a little bit about how music is part of your being. And I'm sure you process quite a bit of feeling and energy through your voice.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Andrea would know this too, being a yoga devotee and a meditation instructor herself, that chanting is a big part of the yogic and meditative tradition. And I have a background in opera, in classical operatic singing. I have 2 degrees, a bachelor's and a master's in opera performance, and I've been singing opera professionally for 20 years. And I have often thought about how singing and chanting, those things stimulate the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is part of where the autonomic nervous system holds a lot of our trauma, stress, anxiety, and fear, and our survival response. So I went through a lot of trauma in my early 20s, like a lot, and my mid 20s. And had I not been singing every single day for many hours a day, I don't know that I would have been able to stay as regulated as I was able to. I don't know that I would have been able to get through my life going through the things I was going through without that help. And so, you know, I guess my way of tying music back to embodiment, this is my cat, everyone, to tying embodiment back to music is to really remind us that the body is an instrument of processing emotion, feeling, trauma, shadow, this messy human experience, the experience, the very painful, annoying experience of being a 5D spirit with infinite cosmic powers and an itty bitty little living space, which is this little meat sack we're stuffed into and trapped in. And that the singing portion, or the ability to make music, right? That is such an important part, I think, to being able to find our artistry and our soul within our human container. I think all art is really that, right? All art is an expression of the human soul finding its way into some sort of embodiment, whether it's embodiment through paint, embodiment through, it's like a physical reality through a sculpture, or an embodiment through an expression through an actual physical body, like singing or playing music or chanting.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Andrea too, kind of kick it to you. You know, you brought up chanting, which is you like Om meditation practices. I was curious, Andrea, how have you been? Have you worked music into your practice at all with the people you work with to teach them?
I do. I actually got a harmonium finally. I've been wanting one. I grew up playing the piano and singing, and I was in musical theater when I was younger. Very into self-expression. I think that's a really beautiful way to express our divinity and just ourselves. But I recently got a harmonium because, like what Maria was talking about, the vagus nerve, is chanting is one of the most healing things, because you're actually putting yourself in parasympathetic nervous system regulation. And so also, you know, there's certain frequencies and everything that you can sing that actually raise your vibration. Not to sound too new agey, but since we're talking about this, you know, it's really what happens. And so, yeah, I think music is, you know, it's extremely healing. And another thing that I think Maria mentioned, I think it's really important, is the embodiment practice is, you know, so much of our Western world, we live up here. We live like neck up, right? We're kind of in our heads. And I think this happens with people that meditate as well. They want that like peak experience. They want to be out of the body. They want to like be, you know, out of this experience. They don't want to feel their feelings. But my goal when I teach and I work with people is I meet you where you're at, which means sometimes we have to go into the body more to ground and to regulate your nervous system and to figure out where you're stuck. And a lot of times that's, you know, we titrate and we kind of just work with the sensations in your body. And then we also work with the breath, you know, because the breath and the mind are so infinitely, you know, they're just connected. And so when you can start to work with the breath and the body sensations, you can start moving the energy. And Maria can probably speak about this a lot more than I can, but there's like like a hose that we have with our energy, and we have these kinks in it, and our energy can't flow properly, you know, through our astral, you know, through the chakras. And so we really kind of want to work with those body sensations so we can really release and allow you to have a, you know, a meditation when you are able to connect with your higher self.
Yeah, with that being said, Maria, before we, by the way, hi, Salvia Healings. Maria, can you please respond to that real quick and then also address this cool comment from Salvia here?
Yeah. So let me start with Andrea's comment, and then I'll move on to Salvia's. So yeah, exactly what you said, Andrea, about this idea of moving energy up through the chakras, right? And using the body to show us where the issues are. That is exactly how I learned to become an energy healer. In fact, I have a Reiki certification program that's a year long, and I teach my students to like go from being a Joe Schmo like I was. I knew nothing about anything, all the way to having literal magic hands. It's wild to do. But in the 5th month, I teach them Tantra for that very reason, because Tantra was the very first entree that I had into moving energy through the body. And I had a solo Tantra practice. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what Tantra is, or you've heard it and you've heard it with conjunction with like Sting, it's not just about sexuality. Okay. So that's the most popular way to use Tantra. But Tantra is actually an ancient yogic method of moving energy through the physical body and utilizing that energy to celebrate the vessel. Right. Now, the most fun way is through sex, but it's not the only way. So I teach my students how to use it to be able to feel their chakras physically in their bodies, these energy centers that kind of anchor different points in their body, but actually how to feel the energy flowing through them, and then how to feel that energy flowing out of their hands and into someone else when they're becoming a practitioner. So yeah, I do think that utilizing the body as a tool for accessing our awareness of our energy is really helpful. And utilizing the body in a body up approach therapeutically, which is what I do a lot with my clients in trauma healing stuff, is really amazing as well, right? Being able to say, okay, the body, you guys, the body is so cool. It's also kind of stupid, but it's really cool. The brain is really smart. Okay. The brain can process through a trauma in under 2 minutes flat. The body holds on to it forever. Okay. But the cool part about the body is the body feels the trigger and the attachment to old trauma faster than the brain can understand what's happening. So have you ever, seen somebody from high school that used to bully you and your stomach immediately cramps and you're not really sure why you feel, anxious going to this high school reunion or whatever? And like, what's the big deal? I'm super successful now. Why should this bother me? That's why, right? The body is reacting to a trigger that's far, far away. And the brain, it takes time to catch up. So when we teach ourselves to be really mindful, like what Andrea is talking about, meeting ourselves where we're at, when we teach ourselves to really get into the body and go, okay, what is this feeling? Can I sit with it? Can I process through it? Can I allow it to move through me and transmute? And then can I psychoanalyze what the hell just happened? It's such a key to understanding ourselves. That's why so many therapists and psychologists and the whole entire therapeutic community now is talking a lot about the body up approach, because you start with the body and then you go to the mind. Yeah. Salvia. Yes. I think, I had a really, I had a very troubling childhood. I was bullied a lot in school, and I had a lot of hard times with kids. And because of that, I kind of had to watch for where the wind was blowing, and see people's reactions. Like Greg was talking about, you see it in their face before you even feel it in their energy sometimes, or you feel it in their energy before you even understand if this person is safe or not logically for you. And so I've always kind of been able to like really associate myself with other people's feelings the way a self-proclaimed empath might. I don't know that I consider myself an empath, but I do know that I can access deep wells of empathy. But I do want to say, and I think that anyone here who's helped another person before in their life probably agrees with this statement. You don't have to have the same exact experiences as someone else to be able to have empathy for them and help them. All you have to do is open your heart. That's really all it takes, is to acknowledge this is a person who's suffering and I know what it's like to suffer. That's it.
I'm wondering if you can talk about the process, like a Reiki session. Like I've seen, okay, this is my only experience with energy healing as I know it, is I watched an episode of Goop on Netflix. You know what I'm talking about? That Gwyneth Paltrow company reality show they had, and one of her employees goes to an energy healer, and you're seeing him move his hands over her body, and she's like, like physically moving, and she like, it talks about after how the guy wasn't touching her at all, and yet she was reacting seemingly to his touch, like he was like pulling out bad energy from her. Is that an accurate picture for how you do energy work? What's your process like with your clients?
Well, Andrea's had a session with me before, so she might be actually the one to speak to that.
Actually, there you go. That thing, Andrea, tell us about your session with Maria.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm happy to tell you my experience, and I'd love to hear her, describe her process on her end. But from my experience with her, it's it's one of those things that we just kind of had a dialogue at the beginning on some of the things I was working on, some of the things I'd, feel like I was, trying to work through a challenge. And as far as Reiki works, it's very subtle in my opinion. And I'm really sensitive. I can feel a lot of things in my body because I'm very in tuned. But it was this overwhelming feeling of relaxation. It's almost like she was able to put me in a meditative state and I wasn't meditating. It was this, and then I would feel like tingling, I would feel tingling, but I wasn't having those kind of, I know I saw the episode on Goop, so I know what you're talking about. And that's a different type of healing. I'm familiar with that, but that's a little bit different. It's like pulling different energy out and cords and all these things. But with Reiki, it's like she's utilizing the power of, the cosmic energy that she's able to channel through her hands, and then using her hands on different parts of my body and bringing like homeostasis to those parts. At least that's how I understood it. So, Maria.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear your experience. I don't often get to hear my clients describe things, or the people that I've given Reiki to describe things in really like kind of experiential ways, right? They just say, "Wow, I feel great afterwards," or whatever. So that was really cool to listen to. Thank you for sharing that. So essentially, what I usually tell people is Reiki is a shamanic, Shinto-based, ancient Japanese quantum healing practice, whereby the practitioner places hands on or above the body of the recipient and channels quantum energy that's all around us in everything and everyone back into the recipient in order to promote their well-being and their balance. Reiki has been scientifically proven to lower cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone, to increase oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, increase dopamine and endorphins, so the happy hormone, the reward hormone. It's also been proven to decrease inflammation and pain from having surgery. It's been proven to speed up healing and recovery time after birth and after surgery. It's been proven to help improve sleep. So there's all this scientific study that's been done over the last 100 years or so, and they released a meta-analysis a couple of years ago now, actually. I think it was only 2 years ago, of all of the studies done since the mid 50s. And they were able to find that Reiki is actually more effective than the placebo effect in relieving pain, which is wild when you think about it, because we have so much research on the efficacy of the placebo effect on the human mind. So it's kind of cool to be able to offer scientific information about it, but also, that you're going to be experiencing something that's incredibly relaxing and that's going to increase feelings of oneness, right? And spiritual enlightenment because of that oxytocin, that bonding, that oneness kind of hormone that kind of reminds us, yes, I'm part of a greater thing. It's also very fucking magical. And most people don't know what to expect. And then once they've experienced it, they go, oh, wow. So I do my best to explain it, but generally speaking, it's one thing that I really recommend everybody at least try to experience once before they'll really understand.
I'd like to share this second comment from Salvia, and this ties into something that you were both addressing just now. Our feelings are full of rich, valuable information, even the scary, yucky ones, maybe even especially those. So part of having feelings is what you do with them, and whether or not you are able to communicate them effectively to somebody who could be in a position to help you with your feelings or help you understand or integrate your feelings. So, in a session, whether it's a meditation, a guided meditation, or whether it's an energy healing session, how much communication about feelings, like Andrea said that she had shared some of where she was at before your session with you, Maria, how much exchange is there between like a client or recipient and the practitioner in terms of how they're feeling or specific things that could be described as feelings before the session begins?
Well, it depends. Usually when I have people come to me in person, we take a moment to ground together, get present in the space, and we talk about like, what are you here to work on today? But, sometimes when I have online sessions with people, distance sessions, They'll say like, I really want to talk about this, or I really want to focus on this, or we'll just jump right into it. It depends. I have a lot of clients who come to me weekly. And so because of that, if I'm seeing them weekly, we kind of already know what we're working on or where we're heading in a goal. And then I have clients who will come to me, occasionally, and then I might ask them, what are we working on? Just depends on the person. But I've found that a lot of newcomers, when it's your first time in a Reiki session, I try to make the space as open and welcoming as possible. And I don't want to put people on the spot too soon if we haven't had the chance yet to build rapport. I don't want to put them in a place where they feel like they have to share their deepest, darkest, twistiest emotions with me when we've just met. And especially if we're online, right? They can't feel my energy. They don't know if I'm, a good person or a weird psycho person. So I like to give them the opportunity to open as they need to. And because of that, I like to tell them at the beginning of the session, I'm going to be reading your energy, and I'm going to be telling you what's coming through for me. My body acts as a mirror. My physical body, when I'm giving Reiki, acts as a mirror for the energy body of my client. And I will feel pains and tingles and twitches and all sorts of different sensations in my body. And I will tell them, hey, I'm feeling this thing. And I've gotten really good at creating a system for myself of analyzing what those things associate with and how they work. And I teach my students all of that too in an intuitive energy reading course in my Reiki class. I'm actually thinking about coming out with a little book too, to teach people how to do that energy reading for themselves. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I'll tell them like, hey, I've got this feeling coming up. So let's say I've got my hands on you and I feel there's a pain in your left shoulder. Well, your left shoulder is about the responsibilities and worries you have regarding feminine energy in your life. That could be your own divine feminine half of yourself. It could be a woman in your life. It could be your personal life. It could be anything here. But if I'm feeling pain here, maybe you're pushing away this responsibility and it's time to face that, right? And then I'll tell them, you can share with me if there's something that comes up for you around this thing that I've told you, but you don't have to. If you want to process it, I'm here for you, but you can process it on your own too, and that's fine. This session is for you to heal in whatever way you feel is the most helpful for you. And that's the way that I kind of allow my clients to kind of open and bloom for me. And then we get into the real nitty gritty of what they need to process in their feelings.
Thank you.
Well, this has been very illuminating for me because I mentioned, I've heard about this Reiki, and it's been like almost like a buzzword in the last few years I've been seeing, and I've seen people I know become energy healers and practitioners, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know what this is, more power to them. But it sounds really lovely and a very transformative experience. And Maria, it's been great to hear you talk about it. Thank you for sharing. Andrea, great to hear your perspective as well. Meditation. I really wish I could dive in more, actually, but we spoke about singing earlier, and I need to go sing with my band, rehearse for a show this Saturday in downtown LA. But so I'm going to jump, and Matthew is going to facilitate the rest of this hang here. But great meeting you both. Thank you, Salvia, for the excellent questions. Thanks for tuning in. Next week, I'll be back for the shroom stream to talk more about mushrooms and psychedelics. But enjoy the rest of this call and the body workshop. Thank you so much for being our inaugural guest. Couldn't have asked for two better guests to have on. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Let's touch on Salvia's second question here, which we'll pick back up again. Maria, after a Reiki session, what do you suggest a client do in order to keep the quantum healing happening, i.e. things to avoid, things to engage with, ways to integrate? And I'll just say, too, that I was happy to hear you mention quantum as directly related to the healing, because it's a term that I got a lot of education on recently through some people that I wound up connecting with, and it's a fascinating world, the quantum. So, but I think that's an incredible question from Salvia. Keeping it happening, is that a reality? Is that part of that kind of energy medicine?
Yeah, it really is. That's such a great question, Salvia. Thank you so much. One of the things that I recommend to most of my clients who come to me is, if you don't have a meditation practice yet, start one now. Start it. Like I was saying with Andrea and what she said earlier, my gateway drug into healing was meditation. And I thought it was therapy, but it wasn't. It was meditation. And then therapy really started to work for me because I started to know myself. Like Andrea was saying, this is how she knows herself, right? So that's one thing I would say, but generally it's going to be really specified to the client. So I feel what's happening in their specific energy, and we talk about the things that are coming up in their life and what actionables they can take in their specific situations in order to make sure that the balance I've created for them in their energetic system can remain stable for the foreseeable future. And of course, I think it's really important to understand that the energetic body is incredibly sensitive. Just like Andrea was saying, she's very sensitive in her energetic body. She's constantly feeling things. The more and more aware you become of your energetic body, the more sensitive you become to those little shifts. And you'll be able to tell when something isn't quite right. And you'll be able to figure out and experiment with yourself. When I do breath work like this, oh, I see my heart chakra opens like that. Or when I meditate, I feel much more grounded, right? Those kinds of things come through when you start to really understand your own energetic system as a fine-tuned machine, right? And that happens when you spend a lot of time meditating, like Andrea was talking about.
Andrew, I wonder if you could speak to the idea of the energetic body and its engagement during the meditation exercise.
Sure. So, we obviously have a physical body, and they're proving this now with quantum physics, but we also have an aura, an energetic body called the astral body. And depending on your, belief system, we can carry a lot of energy from other lifetimes as well. But basically, it's what Greg was talking about earlier, people's vibes you pick up. We're energetic creatures. We're 99% energy. We're all energy. That's what we're made of. The whole universe is made of energy. So it makes sense that we can communicate via energy. And going back to the other question, I think that was before about emotions and that being valuable information. I think that emotions are energy in motion. And what happens is we are afraid of our emotions because most of the way that we were brought up, a lot of the programming is don't have emotions, suppress, right? And so what happens is this energy stays stuck in our body, creates dis-ease, causes us to have blocks in our chakras. So we still have issues. We keep having these patterns repeat. And so what we want to do is we want to allow space for emotions. We want to allow the emotions to process through our bodies, which means it could come in many different ways. Grief might come through as crying. I've had moments when I've allowed myself to totally relax, where I will tremble or shake, and it's my nervous system releasing stuck emotions. And so going back to that question that Sylvia said before too, is that those emotions are valuable information. And we don't want to just bypass that, especially in meditation. And so, I think energy, and once you understand the language of energy, you start to be very in tune with yourself. And that's why meditation is very valuable, because you create this relationship with yourself in a way. You start to know what you like, what you don't like, what you need, what your boundaries are. And then you're able to operate in the world in this way where you become the safe haven for yourself. Right. And so you're not externally focused of like, I need this and I need that and I need that. And you create this structure within yourself that creates safety with your own, energetic body, with your higher self. And then you're able to be, more grounded. You're more in your heart space, which means you can help others. You're more empathetic. And so, I could talk about energy for hours, but that's my 2 cents on that.
Oh my God. Can I just say, I love everything that you just said. Let's quote it, put it on a t-shirt, sell that shit. Like, yes, everything, just that.
You're so cute.
Well, I would, thank you, Andrea. And it leads me to question, if someone is considering, having a psychedelic experience for the first time, say they are going to try mushrooms for the first time, they know that they're looking ahead to that experience, and they want to do it in a mindful manner. They want to do it in a ceremonial setting, in a very intentional way. How might a meditation practice or meditation leading up to that, if you know, or how might energy work or energy medicine leading up to that or after that? We talk about integrating, you know, is there a way to use meditation and potentially energy medicine as an integrative practice leading up to a psychedelic experience or after a psychedelic experience? Could it make the work done in that psychedelic experience, could the benefit be greater due to these supplemental practices?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll speak, and then Maria, I would love to hear your opinion. I think we're probably on the same page about it, but I think it's such a, you know, when you partake in psychedelics, intention is very important, and the reasons you're doing it, it's not just to check out and get a high. It's like you're doing this for part of your healing or for deepening your spiritual expansion. And having that meditation practice is going to create that relationship already built with yourself, and having that sense of groundedness when you go into a psychedelic experience, I think, is helpful. And again, going with what Greg said before, sometimes psychedelics are the gateway, and people do their psychedelic experience. They have this awakening moment, and then they start to meditate afterwards. But I do think that it's valuable if you haven't done it before, to start, working with some sort of meditation practice. It can even be guided, but you're starting to create that relationship with yourself. And then obviously, I think any kind of energy healing is just going to be an addition. It's going to help you prepare. It's going to get your energy prepared for what's going to happen. Because again, a lot of times you might have an intention with a psychedelic experience and you might have something totally different. That's happened to me many times. And then obviously integration. I can't emphasize integration enough. I've been in this space long enough to see a lot of people have experiences and then they don't do anything with it. And so having either a Reiki, having someone like you work on them or work with them afterwards to help them integrate what came up, to help them ground their energy. And then also just to facilitate some kind of meditation practice, even a small one, after your experiences, so you can keep that connection that you experienced during the trip. Yeah.
Maria, would you like to add to that?
I mean, I completely agree. Yeah, we're super on the same page here. I think that you're right about the intention. One of the things I had my first mushroom experience in January. It was my very first one, or in December. And I'd never had one before. I've worked a lot with MDMA, but I haven't worked with psilocybin yet. And so this was my first time. I was very excited to do it. And I had a really great practitioner who helped me do that. And I definitely think in all of my sacred medicine journeys, the one thing that has helped me the most is my meditation practice. I meditated for a long time, many months before I ever tried psychedelics. And had I not done that, I don't know that I would have been able to have as great of experiences as I have had. Andrea talks about having an intention and then having the intention kind of go in a different direction than you expected. And one of the things that my coach told me, my mushroom coach, before we did this journey in December, was don't resist. That's all he said. He's like, don't resist where the medicine is taking you. Just let it take you there. When you resist, that's when you have a bad trip. Just don't resist. Surrender. I don't know that I would have been able to access a level of trusting surrender like that had I not had a meditation practice, excuse me. And in all of my experiences with sacred medicine, I have been able to sit, and the very first thing I do after taking the medicine is I meditate. As I'm allowing the medicine to begin working in me and begin taking me where it's going to take me, I start with meditation. Sometimes I just sit and I meditate for like 6 hours. Sometimes I just meditate for 15 to 20 minutes while the medicine is taking its effect, and then I do the work that needs to be done. And then I always end with a meditation. But I definitely believe that of all the things you can do to integrate in the moment, preparing for it, and then in the moment having a good journey, meditation is the tits. It's the tits. Do it. But when we're talking about energy work afterwards and integrating the lessons, I think that's it's so powerful. And I think that it can offer so much. I do think that it's important to not do it too soon after. And I say that because I think that a lot of times the integration that comes with this medicine comes sometimes weeks later.
Mm.
Things that are releasing somatically, that are processing through subconsciously, they take a little bit of time. And sticking with a meditation practice every day for a couple of weeks and then going into something like an energy healing session can really improve your integration experience and get you the results that you're looking for. But I do think that going into it too soon after is probably not going to be as helpful as you think it's going to be. It might feel really nice, but it's probably not going to be as integrative of an experience.
A couple other comments I want to read from Savia shortly, but I do have another question. What do you think happens to the energetic body during a psilocybin experience specifically? As an energy healer, like, it's interesting to hear with your pedigree and your specific background, and then preparing for the psilocybin experience specifically. And you speak you're very in tune with the awareness of the energy body, or the energetics of a person. What do you think is happening to the energy body during that particular sort of physiological and spiritual experience?
I think my theory is, of course, I don't know, but my theory is that what happens is almost like I imagine it like a pie graph or a scale of some kind. So on one side of the scale, we have the ego and the physical body, the ego's understanding of the physical body. And on the other hand, we have the energetic body, which is egoless. And I think that generally speaking, most of the time, we're like this. We are a physical body, very aware of its physical presence in life. And sometimes we have a moment, a meditative, transcendental moment where we get a little bit more like this, right? When we are in a psychedelic experience, I really believe that it goes like this for quite a while in that psychedelic, or if not quite a while, but the entire experience of the psychedelic experience, where we are very aware, even our ego is aware of our spiritual body, our energetic body, and less aware of the need to identify as ego. You can almost have an out-of-body experience in a way where you are looking at your own ego and acknowledging it and going, oh, that's so cute. Look how adorable you are. You think you're a human, but you're not, right? And at the same time, you haven't lost your body. It's there. You can feel it. You're feeling the physical sensations come through the physical body. But there's this interesting thing that happens when you're taking these psychedelics where you really get the chance to see your ego from a place of not being controlled by it. It's very strange and it's really magical.
Thank you. Andrea, would you like to add to that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that, psychedelics offer a really unique experience because it shuts down the default mode network, which is where the ego resides, the I, me. And again, I'm not here to hate on the ego. I think it's our avatar to get us through this reality. But there's ways to work with the ego. Most of the waking hours we're living as the experiencer. We're like, I, me, I, and we don't realize the interconnected nature of everything that's happening around us, all the different elements, nature, us right now, the way your organs, the way your cells work within your body. And when you're in a psychedelic experience, it allows this space to emerge from your identity, like you were saying, Maria, where we're not this personality that we think of ourselves as, which is really an amalgamation of millions of different parts, right? And so we become kind of the witness of this experience. And when you kind of go to this witness consciousness, which I think happens when you're in a psychedelic experience, you're so present. There is no time. You're just connected to the now moment. And I think that's what makes the experience so incredible, because very few of us experience what it feels like to be in the now, because our ego is constantly narrating all day long. What's happening here? What's going to happen next? It's fear-based, it's separation-based. And so it allows us to be in our heart. And heart is, I think, the goal. It's the bridge to the higher chakras. And psychedelic experiences, specifically psilocybin, I believe it increases your your serotonin receptors, and so a lot in oxytocin, but your heart opens during these medicines. And so you feel this oneness, you feel this love, and it's so powerful. It's so powerful to have those experiences because that's what connects us to each other. And that's energy. Love is energy. Love is the currency. And I believe and I hope that, with these medicines and with meditation practices and us expanding our consciousness, that we come more into our hearts so we can feel more connected to each other, so we can be more connected to ourselves. And I think that's the goal. And I think that's why these, I think it's such an incredible time right now that we're living in, with just the advent of this resurgence of psychedelics and people meditating and talking about consciousness, while we're also dealing with a lot of insane collective shadow at the same time, right? And so, yeah, it's just, so I went on a tangent there, but, I think it's just exciting and powerful, and I'm excited to see kind of where everything goes.
Yeah, this is a very tangent-friendly zone that we're operating in, so always welcome. A couple comments from Salvia. Thank you so much for being here, Salvia. A good book on exploring the subtle bodies that they liked is Awakening Through the 9 Bodies, Exploration and Consciousness for Mindfulness, Meditation, and Yoga Practitioners by Philip Moffat. Are you familiar with that, Andrea?
No, that sounds amazing. I have a friend of mine that just told me to read a book. It sounds similar. It's called Eastern Body, Western Mind. But it's basically, it's about the chakras and awakening the different chakras, and exploring through consciousness. But that sounds awesome.
They couldn't have shared a book title that was more on target for what we've been discussing. Maria, were you familiar with that text?
No, I wasn't, but Wonderful. I'm definitely going to have to check it out. Thank you, Salvia.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a second comment here. Curious to hear more about your meditation practices. They can vary wildly. I know for me personally, the embodied awareness practice of Vipassana has translated well into psychedelic work. Thank you for sharing that insight.
Yeah, it's been the same for me. Vipassana has been my go-to for 7 years now. I've been practicing the Metta daily for 7 years, and it's changed my whole entire life. Not just my psychedelic work, but literally my whole entire life has been transformed by Vipassana. So yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I practice something called Kriya Yoga, which is it's a mantra-based meditation through Paramahansa Yogananda. And so it's uses something called the Hong Sa technique, which is a mantra, but it's probably similar. It's a form of mindfulness, but it goes into 3 different stages where we first work with the body. So we get the body to relax as the first state. So I like to meet people where they're at. So we want to get people to be relaxed before you can even go to the next level, which is concentration. And that's to help the monkey mind that's all over the place kind of just slow down a little bit. And we do that with a mantra and with the breath. We work with the breath. And then the 3rd stage is expansion. And that's where we experience like true meditation is really what it is. And it's when the mind kind of slows down and there's not all the stream of thoughts that you can really kind of tap in.
It's a large landscape of opportunities, meditation and finding a practice. And I think just finding your way to any kind of practice that you stumble upon is a great starting point, right?
Yeah. I mean, I started with guided meditations. That's how I first got my start. I couldn't even close my eyes for 1 minute. It was almost impossible because that's how much anxiety I had in my body. So for me, it was, I used various meditation apps for a very long time until I learned this technique that I mentioned that I was able to, and it took me a while. It took me like 2 years to really kind of, I would say, have a regular meditation practice. So.
We're nearing the end of our stream. We like to keep it right around an hour, but I think the premise of the body workshop, obviously addressing what it's like to have a body, how can, and obviously in this work that Psychedelic Spotlight's done, the information that we get into and the work to cover this landscape, a lot of it is around healing and empowerment. And, we talk about trauma, we talk about things that we have to confront and transcend through. But being embodied, is it safe to say that being embodied is helpful in looking to move through wounding or move beyond hang-ups or practices that hold us back from being our best version of ourselves? being embodied. Is that an accurate use of that term? Because, we're saying integration and embodiment. When you think about integration and embodiment, beyond just the psychedelic experience, what kind of comes to mind for the utility of those ideas?
I mean, for me, embodiment to me, it's like in the body, right? Like we're embodying the lessons, which means whatever lesson we learned perhaps in a psychedelic experience, we take that lesson, whatever it is, and we start to live it out in our life. We start to make changes in our behaviors and the way that we're speaking to ourselves. And to me, those are like the changes are the embodiment of whatever lessons we got from an experience.
I think, what you say about this idea of like we all have a body, and acknowledging that, I think, as part of our healing is incredibly important. I think that any pathway towards healing begins with a wound, and that wound has occurred to not just the emotional or the intellectual or the spiritual body, but it does happen to the physical body. That's the only reason why the wound sticks with us in the first place. Mm-hmm. Like I said earlier, the brain is super smart. It can process through a trauma in under 2 minutes. How often have you found yourself going, this is a first world problem. There are, starving children all over the world. This is not that bad. Or how many times have you said to yourself, like, oh, well, so-and-so has it so much worse than me. At least I'm not fill in the blank, right? Or you've said to yourself things like, I can get through this. This will be fine. I've been through so much worse before, right? We can really logically analyze our way through really difficult times and wounds quite easily. But it's where it sits in our bodies, in our little survival tool, that really challenges us. So when we talk about embodiment, I think it is the only path towards healing. I think reminding ourselves of our spiritual body and our energetic body is beautiful, but that is our reality once we've shuffled off this mortal coil. Right now, we are stuck in the meat suit. Mm-hmm. And the meat suit has physical sensations that need to be honored and need to be worked through. And until we are transitioned into whatever comes next, we have to be embodied, or we're literally just killing time waiting to transition. Then why did we even incarnate, right? Incarnate. That means to be in a body, to be incarnum, in meat, in the body, right? Why did we do that? Why did we take our spirit and stick it in a meat suit if we weren't going to try to feel the experience of embodiment? And that's really painful, and it's gross, and it's messy. Bodies are weird. They do all sorts of disgusting stuff, and they hold on to stuff in the most annoying way. My friends and I are constantly joking, can my body stop keeping the score already, please? I'm really over it. But no, it can't. That's the deal. That's the price of admission for being in this body, is we signed up for this. And that includes all the gross stuff. But when we sit with that gross stuff, when we work with that gross stuff, when we learn to sit with the discomfort, which is a lot of what meditation teaches the mind to have the strength to do, that's when the healing starts.
Yeah, and it is a matter of strength, isn't it? It's not, we don't want to cast healing as something like a bunch of weak and broken people that are just reaching for ways to get better. We use the term mental fitness holistically. The practice of healing is an engaged and ongoing practice, right? Like we're constantly healing or working on our fitness throughout our lives if we have that, if we're fortunate enough to have that opportunity. But I think that as you've illustrated today, they're both very engaged practices, accessible to anyone who wants to get into them. And fortunately, we have wonderful ambassadors like the both of you who can speak to what you do very clearly. I want to thank you so much for being a part of the first body workshop. Obviously, for anyone who's watching this now or on repeat, this again is meant to be a live exchange, right? It's meant to be like Salvia joined in today. We want to hear from you. We want the Spotlight Exchange to be a venue for people who might not be able to ask a question in their communities or in their families or to their friends, right? But they can pop on here and share it, and it's going to be a judgment-free looking at it, sharing it, speaking to it. So if you're seeing this after it's aired, or you're still on and you haven't said anything, always feel welcome to in your time, no pressure to, but feel welcome to. That's what we're here for. Do you want to share a little last bit about where people can find you, Maria and Andrea?
Yeah, sure. You can find me on Instagram. My handle is @AscendingArts. So if you see my company name here down below, my name, it's just @AscendingArts, no space. That's me. You can also find me on TikTok, same name. We talk a lot about CPTSD on my TikTok. We don't talk about that a lot on my Instagram. On my Instagram, it's mostly about healing, energy work, that kind of stuff. But if you're interested in CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and working with that, if you have a diagnosis of PTSD or CPTSD, then TikTok is the place for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Andrea?
Yes, I'm in the midst of rebranding another Instagram account that's called Midlife Rising. But my personal account is AN_DREAM_ONIER. That's my personal account.
And people can reach out to you to get more information on classes
absolutely.
and meditation community. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Cool. Stick around, ladies. I'll say goodbye and thank you to you after this. I'm going to play a little thank you video and just say thanks everybody for being a part of Psychedelic Spotlight, for being interested in these topics and more. We look forward to hearing from you next time. We appreciate you, and we hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, evening, or wherever you are. Thank you.